Bigfoot, a character that we've talked about for over 18 years on every iteration of every program that I've ever hosted. It's a topic that captures the imagination of people worldwide because it is a being, a creature, mythical, magical, or just hiding in plain sight. Maybe there's nothing supernatural about this beast at all, or maybe there is. Maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction for too long. Is it possible that there is more to this creature than just what we've thought there to be? I've spoken to so many different experts, believers, investigators throughout the years, but I've never once seen anything, in my opinion, as compelling as the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot footage. And that's going on 56 years old. As a matter of fact, I believe it was just this last week that it celebrated its 56th birthday. And for all of the footage that has shown up, the fleeting moments, there's been very little that seems to resonate or capture people's imagination and attention. That is, until now. While I was just currently in Vernal, Utah a few weeks back at Phenomenon, I had a friend of mine who is a producer on a brand new documentary, and she asked me to please take a watch, sit down with the crowd, and do a viewing of this documentary, A Flash of Beauty. And I sat down. I was blown away. The documentary is A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. It's a groundbreaking paranormal documentary that delves into the world of Bigfoot, this legendary, enigmatic creature that has captivated the imagination of people worldwide. The film takes a unique approach by exploring the paranormal aspects that go beyond just the flesh and blood theories that are often associated with Bigfoot sightings. And it blends eyewitness accounts, expert interviews, and compelling evidence to shed new light on this mystery. And I promise when you see this documentary, you may walk in a skeptic, but when you see some of the brand new evidence that they're able to bring you, some of the stories and experiences that are caught on film, it's going to make you re-examine everything you thought you know. And that's what we're going to discuss right here tonight on the very best in paranormal programming. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, and this is my Paranormal 60.
I'm not going to stand here and listen to this baloney. You won't know. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me.
Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Hello, my darklings. I am back from Lexington, Kentucky and Scarefest. What an amazing event. I had a great opportunity to hang out with some fantastic people, from the volunteers and workers who sweat and bleed for that convention to the amazing viewers and followers of the strange, the supernatural, and horror movies. It was great to meet so many of you, and I had such a great, memorable time in getting to reconnect with old friends and new friends alike. If you have not been to Scarefest in Lexington, Kentucky, you should definitely make sure that you check it out next year. Hopefully, I'll be back on hand leading the paranormal panels and be a part of that world. It is amazing, truly. If you love horror movies, they get some of the biggest names, the biggest stars and celebrities, past, present, and future. So make sure you check out scarefestweekend.com for updates on next year's convention. Getting a chance to travel. One of my favorite things is doing these conventions, meeting amazing viewers like you that have so many kind things to say, like at Scarefest. So many of you came up to just show an outpouring of love for me and the show, and Chachi and the Colonel and the paranormal detective Greg Lawson from our Wednesday shows. Thank you. That really does mean a lot to us to know that we're reaching so many people. But getting a chance to sit down with experiencers and check out new documentaries that are on the cutting edge. And this is why we're here tonight, because I had an opportunity to sit down in Vernal, Utah and watch a brand new documentary on Bigfoot. My friend Michelle said, she didn't overpromise, but she said, Dave, I think you're going to find this really, really interesting. And I sat down along with a large crowd of people, and we watched this as it unfolded. An absolutely gorgeous documentary, cinematic footage, beautiful. I can't even go into just the majesty of the shots that they've got. But then when you start rolling into the experiencers, the evidence the stories, the firsthand experiences that have been caught on film and shared in this documentary blew my mind. And I'm excited to be able to bring on a couple of the filmmakers involved in this project. Let's do that now. Brett Eichenberger is with us, and Brett is an award-winning filmmaker. He's got over 25 years of experience working in film and video production, and his work includes feature films Light of Mine and Pretty Broken, commercials, short films, music videos, documentary shorts, and filmmaking has taken Brett around the world, but he feels most at home when he's in the outdoors of the Pacific Northwest. And as a native Oregonian, is that the right term? Oregonian? It always sounds weird when I say it. That is an amazing place to live, and especially if you're into the paranormal and Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've lived 2 other places in my life, Los Angeles and Washington D.C., and I keep coming back to Oregon. It's the best place on the planet, I swear.
Very cool. Let's meet your co-conspirator on this project. We've got joining us Tobe Johnson, the author of the Owl Moon Lab books and researcher of all things related to Bigfoot. And with over a decade of research and his own experiences, he's dedicated his work to investigating the relationship of Sasquatch and the paranormal. Tobe is a co-producer of the documentary Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, which was a groundbreaking 2-part documentary series that focused on Sasquatch, the witness testimony. And Tobe has come to the conclusion that Sasquatch is not only very real, but is far beyond what most would believe it to be. And this documentary really showcases that beautifully. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Yeah. Now, listen, before we get into the documentary, you talk so beautifully in here about how nature camouflages itself. Everybody wants to believe that, oh, there's no way Bigfoot, this 6 to 10 foot tall creature could just disappear into the woods, disappear from plain sight, which has led to all of these different theories. But gentlemen, there's a brand new piece of footage. It just came out a few weeks ago from Denver, a couple filming from a train. The beautiful vistas outside the window capture what appears to be this large, hairy, hominid, bipedal creature walking across the rocky terrain effortlessly. And almost as though it realizes it's being watched, it stops and crouches itself into this small pile, if you will, and all of a sudden blends in with the background, the other little bushes and shrubs and rocks in the area. And if you take your eyes away and look back at it, you cannot see where this creature vanished to. That, to me, was one of the most interesting things that's come out recently on top of your guys' documentary, but it seems to prove so much of what you guys are talking about, that these beings, if they exist, have the ability to just blend into their background and their area so easily, you might not even see one if you're staring directly at it. Brett, what do you make of that new footage?
Well, Dave, when the footage first came out, I was really excited about it. And my initial gut instinct was that it was authentic. And the more I looked at it and the more I read about some of the businesses in the area with the name like Sasquatch and whatnot, I started kind of becoming skeptical. But now I'm kind of on the fence because I'm seeing some stuff come out lately that is kind of teetering back to it maybe being authentic. A couple of the things that I saw that really intrigued me were the color of the fur, or the hair, I should say. And the fact that it matched that terrain so perfectly was really interesting to me. I mean, obviously we have, hundreds of different types of animals out in the animal kingdom, either in the ocean or on land, that can, blend into their surroundings perfectly. And this thing did that. And so, I start to think about the human element. If there is a guy in a suit, what would it take for them to put that suit together, to match the landscape, to go through all of that hassle just to fool some people on the train? Wouldn't it be easier if you're going to fool some people on a train, wouldn't it be easier just to put on a black or dark Bigfoot suit? You're going to stick out. You're going to give people a thrill. There was just some odd things about this that kind of has stuck with me, and the way it moved was really interesting. It moved quick. It wasn't completely out of the ordinary. So I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I mean, there's definitely some interesting things about it.
Well, and you'd think if they're out to trick you, and especially if it's one of the Sasquatch finding groups, why walk just a few steps and then crouch and hide yourself? You'd want people to see it. So, wow, we got to go on that tour so we can try to see that. And the fact that it does blend itself in so beautifully with its background. I mean, again, like you, I've heard different sides of this. I guess Coast to Coast AM recently had the two people that caught the video sharing it, talking about it. And the fact that the group that originally was claimed to be behind this video has denied any of that. Again, I guess business is business. But like you said, there are so many different quirky elements to that. You would think a longer pass. You got to hope in today's society, people on a train playing with their phones, what are the odds that somebody just happened to be looking out there or videotaping in that moment to capture it anyway?
Yeah. And one more thing I want to add, Dave, is that I feel like, being a filmmaker, I have the unique perspective of looking at how things are quote unquote produced. And, I've applied this same kind of theory and logic to the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I've reached the conclusion the Patterson-Gimlin film is 100% authentic due to the fact that, you're talking about whomever is in a suit is a performer or an actor. And that's somebody that you need to work as a producer or a director, because there is a producer behind a hoax like that. As a producer or director, you need to give that person, that individual, directions, walk like this, turn your head this way, so on and so forth. Because something like the Patterson-Gimlin film, or even the Colorado film, for instance, like your point where it kind of crouches down, there's some sort of there are decisions being made. There's, this is not a performance to like give something to the kids to talk about, and excite the adults. I mean, there definitely is, like I said before, some logistics that needs to go into it to pull that off so it appears authentic.
Well, Tobe, you've been a big advocate for the fact that Bigfoot is real. It's probably something far more different than people are just assuming, maybe not even flesh and blood in the sense that we know it. What's your take of footage like this and the fact that it fits in so beautifully that it can blend into the background? It looks flesh and blood 1 second and looks like something you would just walk right past in the wilderness without even noticing.
Well, the coloration of it's really curious, just based upon that's a really uncommon color of costume to go by. I mean, there's, I think, one to come to mind that kind of matches the coloration, but the head of the costume, I think, is pretty interesting. But what's interesting about the timing of it is the Patterson-Gimlin footage. We've talked a little bit about that tonight. And I wonder if we went back in history, if we would find kind of hyped up Bigfoot footage showing itself on and around the real McCoy. I think along the lines, if you follow the work that Brett has done in his documentary, governments around the world know about the real McCoy. They know the phenomenon is real. I wonder if they don't muddy the water by pushing forward these murky areas here that kind of show the attributes of a costume, show the attributes of a possibility of a hoax. When we have the real McCoy already, the Patterson-Gimlin footage, I mean, there's so much in that film that can't be debunked, that can be debunked in this film. It can be duplicated. You can't duplicate what happens in the PG film just based upon the fact that it has foam latex. There was no foam latex in 67. And, the special effects artist from Planet of the Apes came forward and said, we couldn't do that. We'd hire them on our team if, they were out there doing this kind of stuff. So, that's really the point right there. I think some of this can be duplicated in that footage, but certainly, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, you can't duplicate that.
Yeah, 1967 technological advancements prove it with all the different shows and movies. I always point to the beginning of 2001, A Space Odyssey, which I think came out in the same year. The beginning of that movie with a big budget, it is so clearly a man in a horrible monkey suit outside of the giant sigil deal and banging on the ground with the bones. They couldn't even get something that looked nearly as good as the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now they've taken that film, they've run it through so many different filters to stabilize it, to clarify it, clear it up. Do you think that if we did that, just out of curiosity, you would think that if there were trickery, it would have shown itself? To me, the Patterson-Gimlin film gets better every year. With every test they run it through, it looks more authentic, more real every time. Do you think that could happen with this piece of footage that they just captured out of Denver as well?
I've seen some AI enhancements of it, and I feel like because the subject is so far away, as opposed to the Patterson-Gimlin film, I've been to the site at Bluff Creek, and I've seen the distance as to where the camera was versus where Patty was, and it was like 50 feet. I mean, they were really. It looks further away than it was, and that has to do with the lens that they were using at the time on the camera.
Mhm.
But this particular subject in Colorado was quite a ways away, and the image breaks down quite a bit as you zoom into it. So, even with the AI enhancements, I think AI is also trained to fill in the blanks versus what it's been trained on, and AI has
Right.
not been trained on real Bigfoot. I can almost guarantee you. So, maybe, you know what I mean? The technology right now is moving so fast, and you just brought that up with the Patterson-Gimlin film, Dave. And one thing I'd like to point out about the Patterson-Gimlin film is the Patterson-Gimlin film was shot on 16 millimeter film, and 16 millimeter film is equivalent in resolution to HD at the time. So the reason why we're seeing these versions of it really clean and sharp is because once you get in there and you get rid of all the jitters and you stabilize it and you get rid of the dirt and the dust, it's high definition equivalent. And so again, with that piece of footage, the further the technology goes, the more we're going to see in that film, and the more we have seen in that film, and the more it's giving us proof that it's authentic.
Well, let's obviously we've talked enough about the film from Denver and the film of Patterson-Gimlin. I want to talk about your new film, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. Let's take a look at the trailer.
There's things that I won't tell you, that I can't tell you. All I can tell you right now is, and I'll look you right in the eye, I'll tell you, whatever goes on in these woods, don't take it for what you can see. Because there's a lot more to what you can't see. Bigfoot, shape-shifted, folks.
It's not just that Sasquatch exists, it's that Sasquatch can do this and this and this.
We had the hair tested by a vet. It came back as an unknown hair type. Then I turned to Daryl and I said, listen, it could get really weird now.
It was able to do things that you couldn't even imagine.
What are the chances of us seeing something like that? 1 billion to 1? 2 billion to 1? Why us?
I think if you can base some of this in science, it allows us to have the grasp of what's going on. Coherent matter can work in ways that ordinary matter can't because it's based on quantum principles. So it can easily go into cloaked mode.
And the words repeated, why are you carrying a gun? And the second time it went through my head, I knew they're talking to me.
It's not about the one encounter. It's about the thousands of encounters, exact same type of characteristics that tell the story. You cannot deny it. And that's why you have to acknowledge the paranormal aspect.
What did I just see here? Oh my goodness.
Guys, what an amazing documentary. The footage, the story, the evidence that you're able to present in this, and the experts that you get to come on board. Were you surprised at the way you had people that normally probably would have never given time of day to this, how they responded to the evidence that you're able to show them?
Well,
slow down, guys, not all at
once. Yeah. I feel like the response has been tremendous. We've got some stuff that I had never heard before until it kind of landed in our lap, nor did I think it was possible, especially the ending, 10, 15 minutes of the film with these two eyewitnesses, Harold and Cody. And then there's Barb Shoup's, famous cloaking footage that we break down, and we get Eric Bard from the Skinwalker Ranch to kind of chime in on it. And he's never seen anything like that. So the evidence in this movie, we were, very blessed, I guess you could say, and lucky to have gotten and to be able to share with the world.
I just want to say, you know, the Bigfoot community has never had the chance to be in a documentary like this. There's quite a few people that are kind of hurt for the fact that they're not in this documentary. They want to tell their story to this film crew. You know, kudos to Brett, Jill, and Mike for stepping up to bat to make a beautiful documentary about Sasquatch. It's just never been done this way. I think it will change the game. But beyond that are the types of stories that you're about to see in this documentary, things that you've never heard before from people you've never heard before, in a way that is so true, so believable, that you're left questioning your own theory. And I'm talking mainly to the aper community that thinks this is merely a relic hominid. There's something else going on here. It's time that we give credence to these stories here and follow the evidence, no matter how strange it gets.
Now, Tobe, maybe you could help us out with this, because when we use the word paranormal, it's a very anomalous term that kind of means a whole bunch to a whole bunch of different people. You know, you say, well, Bigfoot's paranormal. A lot of people think you're saying it's a ghost and that it doesn't really exist. It's just fleeting moments, like a residual haunting we're seeing passing. What exactly is the concept when you're utilizing the term paranormal in this instance?
Well, out of the ordinary, and not explained by science, on the fringes of our understanding. I mean, I think we're getting there with the likes of the 2017 New York Times article on UFOs. I think that leads the way in the correct direction that the UFO community needs to go. We don't quite know what to do with this. I mean, I want to take Luis Elizondo when he's talking about ATIP and he was talking about UFOs. He says, be prepared for this not to come from outer space or inner space, but the spaces in between. And that's where I'm at with this research. Something else way funkier is going on.
Mm-hmm. Very weird. Brett, you're putting this program together. This is really kind of a follow-up to the other documentary, right?
Yeah. So basically the short story, it's a long story, but I'll make it short, is that we set out in June of 2020 to make a Bigfoot documentary. And, both Jill and I, Jill's the co-producer, or I'm sorry, Jill's the producer, both her and I had this Bigfoot fascination for the longest time. And we wanted to make a documentary about him. And, this goes all the way back to about 2012 when we had our first invite, just as curious individuals, our first invite to Beachfoot, which is kind of an invitation only gathering on the Oregon coast. And so we were able to make some friends and start asking some questions way back then. And we knew that at some point we wanted to do this documentary, and then the pandemic hit. And so we thought, business is dried up. What a better way to avoid, people than to go out into the forest and look for the social distancing champion of the world, right?
That's right.
So, we started putting it together really quick. We thought we'd spend 4 or 5 months on it. And we kind of thought that, it's like, it's Bigfoot and, people see him and they don't. And that was kind of that, we thought we'd have fun. And anyways, we opened a can of worms and started going down this rabbit hole that we couldn't even have imagined, and quickly realized that we needed to split this movie into 2 parts, and going into this, we knew that there was a quote unquote woo and or paranormal side. And we knew that there was a flesh and blood side. We were aware of that. And so we were going to attempt to cram it all into one documentary and, and keep it at 90 minutes. And we found out that was going to be impossible. And so we felt like the best way to do it is to do the flesh and blood, which is a flash of beauty Bigfoot revealed, and then do a flash of beauty paranormal Bigfoot. And to be honest with you, we're left with hundreds of hours of amazing stuff that's on the cutting room floor that slowly but surely we're going to start dispersing. We've already started dispersing it on our YouTube channels, so people can go back and watch the raw footage, the entire interviews of folks like Dr. Meldrum, who has the scientific approach, so on and so forth. So we're trying to get all of this information out there so folks that are really interested in the subject matter can do their own research and make their own decisions.
The point that I'm left with your documentary, the newest one, of course, is just how little we really know about science. And it's interesting because people don't want to believe that. We want to believe that, our government loves us and they'll take care of us. We know that that's not necessarily true. We want to believe that they're going to tell us the truth about things that are going on. We know that's not true. they're coming forward now. I've understood the concept of not wanting to admit to UFOs and aliens, right? As a dad, my children might not be mature enough for me to explain ghosts or aliens or Bigfoot to them right now. So no, honey, that's just a cartoon. That's just don't worry about it. We cushion it. And listen, we the people sometimes are morons, and we get the information and we react poorly. So I understand the concept of maybe kind of softening the blow about aliens, but I've never understood the concept of hiding Bigfoot. Why would the government hide that detailed information? We admit that we can go in any national forest, and we're taking the risk of bear attacks and mountain lions and cheetahs and whatever the hell else is living there. And they're okay with that. There's some signs. Why are we hiding Sasquatch? Tobe, what do you think?
Well, I think it belongs in the UFO category. It's really hard not to call Sasquatch an alien itself, just based upon the characteristics. I mean, they have the attributes of poltergeist and, seem to be able to change states, including their own physical form. We talk about shape-shifting with one of our witnesses, Jack. I've certainly heard that from witnesses over the last 15 years, too. Turning into light forms, that goes back to the world of the ghost or even to the world of UFOs. So it could be the consequences of what we're really talking about. I mean, certainly the First Nations people say that these beings can walk between two worlds. These native forest brothers. Now, they all have different varying beliefs, whether or not they're good, devils, demons, bad, but they all believe that there's something other than just the physical nature. But, oh, by the way, so are we. I mean, that's what religion's all about. We are of the spirit as well. We seem to forget that. But I think their initial form, I'm just jumping ahead here to what I think. I think that they are the spirit form most of the time. I don't think they are of the physical form most of the time. I think that's when we see the latent attributes of them, the footprints, the handprints, the hair. But I think it's the consequences of what that means and what we are.
Brett, during the filming of this, and I don't want to give any secrets away, you've kind of alluded to some of the stories and evidence, but I want people to watch this documentary from start to finish. There's a couple of 1-2 punches you mentioned in the last 15 minutes, but there's great storytelling and a couple of, uppercuts and jabs throughout the entire thing that are going to put you back thinking. But I want to know, Brett, while you were filming, especially the Paranormal Bigfoot documentary, do you think that there were any times that they were very near you and your crew?
Yep, absolutely. And there's an instance where we interviewed this woman, Tara, who's a psychic. She lives in Cottage Grove, Oregon. And we were at the Owl Moon Wilderness. So, an area where there's gifting taking place, where there's been lots of sightings and strange happenings. And Mike and I were setting up the shot to do the interview before Tara arrived. And man, there was just this strange feeling in the air. The air felt electric. And I know a lot of people say that, but it really did. We were hearing strange noises in the forest. And mind you, this isn't the national forest. This is on BLM land, Bureau of Land Management land, public land. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the evening. We know there's nobody out there. Of course, there's bear and there's deer and there's other animals out there, but the noises we were hearing were strange. So anyways, we're in the middle of Tara's interview and I start seeing these flashes on camera, little tiny microbursts. And I've seen this before in video, and what I thought it was pixel flashes on the sensor of the camera, not to get too technical. And so, but they look different. Pixel flashes tend to be square. They tend to be, square and all bright in one exact spot. And so, I made a note and I said, write this time code down so I could go back and I could take a look at it. And so when I finally had a chance to go back and look at it, I realized that it was not a sensor issue. And I kind of said to myself, if I find this on the second camera, that would eliminate the fact that this one camera was having issues. And I did. I found the flashes on the second angle. Now the second angle is not in the film, but the first angle is, and I show the freeze frames of what we caught on camera, including something that looks a little bit like a J or a squiggle which to me is something that's moving so fast that it left a trail of light in that 1/24th of a second frame. And people that do long exposure photography would know what I'm talking about. So I couldn't explain that. I didn't know what it was. And then we sat down with Dr. Simeon Hein, who is featured prominently in the documentary, because we wanted to get into the science of this.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll have to watch the documentary to see what Dr. Hein has to say about what we captured on camera. It's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, there are so many different elements to the storytelling and things that you're hearing out there and seeing and witnessing. And I think I told Michelle this while we were out there. After I watched it, I said, you guys were talking about these light anomalies. I've been on ghost hunts. I've been to paranormal investigation spots in seeking spiritual communication. And then a couple times with friends where we see this light, I call it Tinkerbell's wand. All of a sudden these sparks just emanate out of nowhere. And then phenomena happens shortly after. A lot of us that are proficient in EVP, electronic voice phenomena, have noticed that sometimes just before we capture voices, we'll catch this kind of this electronic, like something's breaking through to be heard. And it's so fascinating that ties in with the kind of experience you're having and you're capturing the light. It didn't have that sparkler effect that I've seen. And like I said, one time I was in the Queen Mary in the hull of the ship with Grant Wilson from TV's Ghost Hunters. And we were just down there kind of kicking it and listening to we wanted to hear the weird croaking sound that's often heard down there. And as we're talking, all of a sudden, both of our eyes look up and there's sparkles. And he's like, what was that? Maybe it's like a live wire dangling and we're putting our flashlights up. There's no cord. There's no wire. Then the other time was at the Belvoir Winery in Missouri. And we were in this little underground area that they have. And I was telling the group, okay, so this is the kind of activity we've had in here. And it popped again in front of all of us. So there is something to be said about this interdimensional play of how UFOs appear to transit and move from one place to another so quickly. The Sasquatch Bigfoot phenomena, ghosts. It is really interesting how there are a lot more commonalities than we ever gave credit to before.
100%. I know Tobe can talk more about this, but I will just say that when we really got into the Paranormal Bigfoot documentary, the coincidence, not the coincidence, but the commonalities between the UFO subject matter and the ghost subject. I mean, it's all connected, and it all has kind of an electromagnetic base to it, you know. And I'll let Tobe expand upon that.
Well, it's a big can of worms. You know, you said something, Dave, that strikes into the heart of this place called the Al Moon Lab, which I studied at, I lived at, I still go down and visit periodically. It's about 5 hours from my house. And I don't know if, you know, the apers, the Bigfooters that are flesh and blooders, that if they ignore this evidence or it's just too crazy and they can't deal with it. But a lot of them audio record, you know, they set out their recorders in the woods and they go and retrieve it, or they leave their game cameras and they get these light anomalies and they just kind of pass them off no matter how extraordinary they are. But they get these strange audio sounds, and we got plenty of these pop, sizzle, snapping, flicking sounds all around our recorder. And I'm led to believe that something is manifesting. It seems to be kind of gaining its energy or its power to do its thing. That's when these apports happen, or these incidents happen. And Bigfoot is a part of that world. I don't even think wood knocks are wood knocks anymore after the stuff that happened to us. I think something crazier than a monkey with a stick hitting the side of a tree is happening. And, you know, we're just fearless in this doc because, you know, how many times are you going to make a great documentary? Maybe once or twice in your life, you know, and this is just one of the great ones that Brett and Jill pulled out. And it happens to be about Bigfoot. But, you know, thank God we're out here talking about this now. It's just, I think that we're going to be a part of conferences from here on out that tell the damn truth. And the truth is so much crazier than what these other Bigfooters have been telling you.
I would love the opportunity. You know, I've been very good in locations that are known to be haunted to get electronic voice phenomena, to get things that communicate one-on-one. I would love to try that in an experiment in the woods where Bigfoot is known to be. I would love the opportunity to see if these beings, you know, are more willing to communicate that way verbally. You know, just trying it. I don't know how much of that has been done. I know recorders are left, but trying to have the communication done that way. I'd love the opportunity, but I have to take a quick break. We'll come right back. We've got more to discuss, so much more on the docket, and make sure you check out A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal, Bigfoot. We'll have links on the program guide and information on how you can get it, watch it, and keep up with it. We'll be right back right after this. Hey, folks, come on out and join me at the Lexington in St. Paul on October 30th. It's going to be an amazing time. Earlier this month, I got a chance to go in and investigate this very haunted restaurant right here in St. Paul, along with my team, and we caught some crazy evidence. We're going to show you video and audio evidence that we captured during the entirety of our investigation. It'll be a night of cocktails, some amazing hors d'oeuvres, some great ghost phenomena, and you get to be right there in the heart of the haunting yourself. Plus, I'll be sharing some other favorite ghost stories along the way, so I hope you'll come on out and check it out. Where can you get information? Same place you always can. Go check out darknessevents.com. That's darknessevents.com. But this weekend, the haunted Shanley Hotel in Napanoch, New York welcomes you, along with me and Scotty the Medium. We're going to be investigating. It's going to be talks, presentations. We're going to do some workshops. We're just going to have a great time, and I hope that you'll consider coming out and joining us, even if it's just during the daytime for the daytime talks. Tickets and information, again, can be found very easily at darknessevents.com. And the 9th annual New Jersey Para-Unity Expo is coming up soon. It is amazing. One of the biggest, best combinations of all of your favorite paranormal shows and investigators all under one roof. That's November 4th and 5th in Woodbridge, New Jersey. And if you want more information, go to NewJerseyParaUnityExpo.com. Or if it's easier, just check out darknessevents.com. Scroll down the page and you'll find more information there. All right, we're back. Tobe Johnson, our guest, Brett Eichenberger, the documentary we're talking about, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. God, there's so much I want to unpack, so much I want to talk about that I want to have you guys back on once people have had a chance to see the documentary, because there's going to be so many questions. But let's start off. How can people see this documentary? Where can they see this doc? And how can they get you to come to town and show it on the big screen?
Well, Dave, so we're doing kind of a slow rollout right now, and there are reasons behind that I won't get into, but people can watch it on vimeo.com, vimeo.com/on-demand/paranormal Bigfoot. And you can watch this on your TV. You'll have to look up, if you know how to do a Chromecast or do AirPlay from your phone, you can download it on your phone. You can watch it on your TV. There's also a couple of other various ways of doing it, but that's where it is right now. We hope to be expanding, just like A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot revealed, to YouTube or to Amazon, YouTube rentals, and Tubi in the not too distant future.
Fantastic. Well, as it becomes more available on more standards, please let us know so we can let people watch. And again, after the show, stay on. I'll get that full URL and I'll make sure that we put it up so that people can find it, and I'll put it in today's program guide. For those of you listening to the audio portion of today's program, you'll find it on the program guide. For those of you watching it, I will also try to re-embed it in all of the show guides that you guys are taking a look at now, especially here on YouTube. I will check the questions. I know we've had some pop in, and I have not paid any attention to that during the show, so we will filter in a few of those as the program continues on. Tobe, why do you think there's such a groundswell of popularity in the Bigfoot researcher field at this point in history?
Well, mainstream media has caught on with it. You know, it's had some commercial success. I don't really call him Bigfoot because it's just kind of a corny commercial tag nowadays. So we go with Sasquatch out here. But, Bigfoot in general is just, it's like the modern day teddy bear. In fact, kind of interesting that we bring up the word teddy bear. We interview one of the witnesses on our Flash of Beauty podcast, one of these cloaked insiders that supposedly was clued in on some of these kill teams out here near the Lewis McChord base. that would take care of nasty Sasquatches. And one of the code names that they used out here was teddy bears in order to deal with the phenomena. So yeah, no, it's just it's one of those things. I think the groundswell is attached to the ET phenomena, to be honest. I think everybody's gut instincts is saying that something crazier is going on here. So instead of little gray men, we have little furry giants.
Right. And what isn't going to be weird when they finally appear in the sky and start beaming themselves down and all the rocks come to life and Bigfoot is our savior after all. Dave, it's that kind of talk that makes people think you don't take it seriously. And I do. I just think it's amazing that there is all these weird correlations. And I can't wait to see when somebody finally pulls that thread and this whole tapestry comes together and we see how they're connected and what's really taking place. With this, what was probably one of the most shocking elements for you, Brett, to uncover in between these two documentaries?
Oh man, I can't talk about it. Spoiler alert. No, I mean, kind of, sort of. I just didn't know how many tricks Bigfoot had up his sleeve. Let me put it that way. One of the other things that we set out to dispel was that these creatures are not monsters. And I want to reiterate that, and I've said this before in other shows and in interviews and stuff, is that, these things are just as much like people as we are as far as personality goes. I think they're curious. I think they have a sense of humor. They're extremely intelligent. Some don't want you in their forest living room, if you will. Others are curious to see what you do and how you react. I've heard the gamut of stories from, them chasing people out to, folks, doing gift exchanges like what Tobe and Daryl does. And those gift exchanges become deeply personal and touching. So, there's it, and I feel like there's just going to be surprise after surprise after surprise as we continue on this journey. But I will say the end of the film is unlike anything I could have ever imagined. It still bewilders me to this day. And in all honesty, had it been just one eyewitness, I don't know that we would have featured them. But those two gentlemen that had that sighting are two of the most earnest, honest gentlemen I have ever heard of, I've ever seen. And I just want to let the audience know that we aren't paying these people. These people have nothing to gain but ridicule. And that's important to understand that, it takes a lot of courage to come out and talk about this, especially, when we're distributing this film around the world. And we're very clear with these people about how we're going to put this out there. But they are convicted to tell this story because they understand how important it is for us humans to know what's going on. This stuff is real. It's not a matter of whether it's real or not. It is real. And there are hoaxers out there, of course, but the vast majority of the stuff that's going on, it's real, and it's deeply, deeply affecting those that witness it.
And folks, if I can address one thing, listen, you've been watching me on TV for years and listening to the radio and doing what I do in the field of ghost investigations. And one thing that I've said over and over again is even when I have an experience, I call it breaks my brain. I know what just happened, but it makes absolutely no sense to me. It's like I'm thrown out of myself trying to re-examine something I just watched on TV. The skeptical side of you is there. I understand that there are many of you out there saying, well, it's not that cut and dry, Brett. It's not that, is there something real? There is. Is there really? And I understand that. I have had face-to-face encounters with strange phenomena that I can't deny it. It's like looking at Tobe Johnson right now in front of me. He's there. He's real. He's three-dimensional. And then he's gone. And your brain just cannot process it. So I understand that even the people that have seen it, and I don't like to give away the tip, but man, when you talk to an experiencer who's truly had something, you see it in all of their eyes, that they're bilocating when they're telling you that story. There is part of them back at that moment and part of them here, and they're very loosely tethered. It's so compelling to see people tell that story, and you know that they're living every second of it every time they share that element. So don't be so quick to judge because it doesn't make sense in your paradigm, because until the minute you turn around and see this thing in front of you, it's always going to seem implausible. Now, Tobe, I want to ask you, there's a lot of people that have done this gifting where they leave food, they leave a gift out, and then the beings start doing the same thing. And then you stop. And some have claimed to have gotten very aggressive. Is that a decision that people should be cautious of doing once you get into this,
I think with the food, I think the food thing is probably the issue with them throwing a bit of a tantrum. It's a cautionary tale that you should feed these beings at all anyway.
Right.
But certainly it's tempting when you see the evidence that something's unscrewed the peanut butter and then screwed the lid back on, or, done something elegant and left greasy handprints, or had a sighting initiated because of the gifting. We did all that, but they want to gift with us. And as corny as it sounds, bringing gifts for Bigfoot seems to be a way of getting closer to a man. They want that initiation process to kind of begin slowly with little tiny trinkets that over time seem to add up to sightings and bigger gifts. And, mind speak, if you're into that. We didn't get a lot of that out at our property. We do talk about that in this documentary with an ex-law enforcement guy. That's certainly a part of the Bigfoot world. I don't know where you would stick that on the paranormal scale, but mind speak is definitely a part of the Sasquatch world. But getting back to your question, I always suggest, definitely find a place that can't be corrupted. Some place that's absolutely your little stick in the woods to do this gifting thing back and forth, and see what happens. I think they're kind of waiting to see if you find the nuances of something, and then if you can appreciate the nuances of this controlled area, the gifts get bigger, and eventually these gifts will end up in your house. As crazy as that sounds, we had magnificent gifts left behind locked doors, things that are totally inexplicable, from physical objects to footprints to handprints, and they were gifts of significance, things that we had just spoken about, not just random stuff, from a campfire. It was stuff that would kind of link to conversations we had or thoughts that we had, which is a whole different kind of mind screw.
No, Tobe, that is not Bigfoot. What that is Amazon. It's always listening, and whatever you're talking about, you get those ads the next day, man.
Gotcha.
Bigfoot's working with Amazon, man.
Big tech.
No, right. That
Right.
is crazy that happens. And I've talked to other people. That's called apportation, when something just appears. And folks, this, for those of you, and I think it's so funny, the people that are in these different camps, the ghost people, I have a really hard time buying that whole Bigfoot scenario. The Bigfoot people having hard times with aliens and so on and so forth, when they all do seem to be interchangeable. And there have been apportations of product and things that show up through the ghost realm all the time. So why couldn't, if there is a correlation between these things, why couldn't they find a way to get these things into your home or around you? And how many times have we been somewhere and felt like there is something here with us? And your animals, I've been in places where the animals slowly all turn and look at the same area, and you can sense something just before they do. And then you're like, we want to ascribe it to ghosts because that's my realm, right? But who knows what just walked into that room to kind of take a look at who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah. I should mention too, you probably worked with Sarah Lemos as well, Psychic Sarah. She did a psychometry reading from the Al Moon Lab on a hair that I brought up to the McMinnville UFO festival. And she was really skeptical about the whole thing. She didn't even think Bigfoot was real. But from that single hair, which she had no idea whether it was a hair off my head or if it was a Sasquatch hair, she turned into a believer. In fact, she went on to say that Sasquatch is a part of the Fey realm and that they are beyond the Fey realm. They're kind of qualified as some kind of demigod. Very strong language to use from a skeptic standpoint. And I think she's shown up at a couple Bigfoot events now.
Yeah, there is an interesting tie to all of this. We got to do one more quick break, folks. Stay tuned. We'll come back and a couple more discussion points before we head off this evening here on the Paranormal 60. Innovation, creation, vitality, and joy are the pulse of mysoultopia.com, with many custom creations for the mind, body, and spirit, along with classes, intuitive sessions, coaching, and healing energies. MySoultopia.com strives to bring sophistication with a twist to the metaphysical and the holistic market, while raising the community's vibration and channeling the new paradigm, which means new and exciting adventures for all. MySoultopia.com is utopia for your soul. Visit MySoultopia.com, your one-stop shop for all your metaphysical needs, offering hand-selected crystals and crystal jewelry with prices to fit every budget. MySoultopia.com offers the best selections of tarot and divination cards by top designers, expertly curated and award-winning book collections from top authors on every subject you'll need on your spiritual journey. MySoultopia is also proud to offer the finest singing bowls and an eclectic collection of the most amazing gemstones, crystals, and crystal jewelry from the top metaphysical designers in the world. MySoultopia.com is always your one-stop shop for award-winning mixes of Florida water, sage spray, and other spiritual protection. So begin your journey with the best resource, MySoultopia.com. That's MySoultopia.com. Why mess with the rest when you can start with the best? MySoultopia.com. Again, that's MySoultopia.com. Hey, for those of you looking for a little direction in life and wondering where you can get some help, go to Love and Lotus Tarot with Winnie Schrader. You can scan the image that you see right now on the screen, and it'll give you access to book a reading, or you can go check it out at Paranormal60.com. Paranormal60.com. Click on the Love and Lotus tab. You'll find more information there. Get some insights into the world around you, the things that are going on in your life, and the strength, courage, and wisdom to start making the changes that you need to make. Go find that right now at Love and Lotus Tarot. Are you like so many others, coming into abilities that you don't understand and unsure where to safely begin this journey of exploration? Well, award-winning psychic and medium Michelle Welch has the answers. Michelle Welch is the author of the award-winning book, The Magic of Connection. Stop cutting cords and learn to transform negative energy to live an empowered life. In this book, you'll learn how spirituality and intuition can help you heal your inner wounds while staying connected to the people that you love. Author Michelle Welch shows you how to work with the energies that connect all people. And you'll learn to transform and transmute negative energy in ways that support your personal spiritual journey and help you reach a more powerful and meaningful life. In her newest book, Spirits Unveiled, a fresh perspective on angels, guides, ghosts, and more, Michelle teaches you how to identify and deal with the spiritual energy around you every day. Each chapter features a specific kind of spirit and teaches you how to sense its presence, identify and connect with it, and set the boundaries you may need, all while demystifying the process and making it easy and accessible to everyone, from the beginner to the expert. You'll learn how to understand elementals, connect with an ascended master, protect against psychic attacks, astral travel, and more, providing meditations, visualizations, and inspiring stories. This book helps boost your intuition and spiritual experience. Unleash the real you. Get the books, The Magic of Connection, Stop Cutting Cords and Learn to Transform Negative Energy to Live an Empowered Life, and Spirits Unveiled, a fresh perspective on angels, guides, ghosts, and more. Buy them now wherever you purchase your books or by using the link on today's program guide. Life is confusing enough. Why not make it easier with award-winning help from Michelle Welch? Hey guys and girls, remember, Into the Obscure joins the Paranormal 60 family. Audio-wise, you can listen to them every Wednesday right here on the Paranormal 60 Network. For those of you that would like to watch the ladies live, you can watch them live Tuesday nights. Just check out Into the Obscure. You can watch them on Facebook. You can watch them on YouTube and other locations. Go check them out right now. We're back. We're talking with our guests, A Flash of Beauty. Paranormal Bigfoot is the name of the documentary. Tobe Johnson, Brett Eichenberger, our guests, as we're wrapping up this segment. The different cultures that seem to admit to knowing about these beings seem to be widespread, right? It's not just indigenous peoples. It's been past cultures all around the world that have some form of this hairy giant man that has existed. It's such a prevalent part of who we are that, again, it seems weird that we don't just know about it more readily. Or are there places where you find that it was more readily available? People just accepted it as fact for so many years, and then it stopped being okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, in the documentary, I don't want to give any spoilers, but we get into that a little bit in the Sistine Chapel. There's some incredible artwork on the walls that's been ignored for far too long. There's artwork all over the world. There's reliefs on chapels and churches all over the world of the wild man or the green man. Certainly trolls, I think, date back to the idea of a big hairy giant that, lives out in under the bridges or, out in the woods in this case. But yeah, I don't think it just starts at the First Nations legend.
Brett, going forward, you've put together these two documentaries. I know you wanted to make it like a two-part series. Is there enough that you're going to be tempted to go back for a third round on this?
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, Dave, because we've been hearing some chatter about doing a third one. Some folks have brought it up. We certainly have enough content, and we keep coming across new stories, every week. So it's a possibility, but right now we're changing our focus. We're concentrating on telling the story of Ron Moorhead and his cohorts and adapting the book, The Voices in the Wilderness, and really getting into the Sierra Sounds. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Sierra Sounds, there were the recordings of Bigfoot samurai chatter. It sounds like old Japanese movies of these things talking in the woods of the Sierra Nevadas. And so we're going to be telling a story that hasn't yet been told. The additional details will be coming out. So hopefully that movie will be out at some point next year.
And the Sierra Sounds are crazy. I remember getting the audio sent to me for one of the shows we did on it in the past. And when you hear it the first time, you're like, this is ridiculous. There's no way this is real. And everybody's so sincere about it. It is such bizarre audio, folks. And Samurai Chatter is the perfect title for it, right? I mean, hearing it sounds like the old kind of like some cartoony Japanese Godzilla voice, but it's weird. And then you hear these other hoots and hollers and that bellow. And I have a loud voice, man. I can be heard from one end of town to the other if I get out and yell for my kids. But the haunting nature, when you hear those and it kind of fills the air. Now, I understand there are animals out there that sound really weird when you don't know what they sound like. And I've talked about it on the show, the time I heard mating foxes and it sounded like a woman screaming, help me outside. I kept calling the cops. And then they finally come over and they're like, Schrader, it's foxes. I'm like, it's not foxes. Some woman's being bludgeoned to death. Go do your job. He goes, go on YouTube and look up fox mating call. Help me! Help me! I'm like, oh my God, that's horrifying.
Wow.
So there are some of these noises, but man, I have heard and I've listened to so many different animal noises to try to say that's just a coyote or that's a wolf. Some of those howls, those I don't even know what the hell you call them, Tobe. Those loud projections that fill the entire forest. That's otherworldly.
Yeah, these vocalizations too, when you put them on spectrogram, which is a voice analysis system, you can look at the waveform and the hertz level. And Sasquatch have this quality, this signature of where they land on the hertz level that is, it's very different than an animal call and a human call. It's very dense and it's horizontal in nature, not vertical in nature. It's kind of hard to explain, but you can look at these sounds as much as you can hear them. and get the unusual quality off it.
Unbelievable. And there's enough zoologists out there. I've not yet seen one zoologist come out and go, oh, well, that's the Mediterranean yuku bear, right? And that's all that. Somebody's playing that through a speaker somewhere in the woods. Nobody's ever said what those giant whooping noises are, what those ear-shattering, wood-shaking noises are. And that, to me, is pretty telling as well.
Yeah, we have, as a matter of fact, Dave, we have a snippet from our buddy Jack, who's in the film, who tells an extraordinary story. But Jack, we're out visiting with him doing some filming, and he's like, oh yeah, I had him in my old property, and I got 17 straight minutes of yelling and screaming and bellowing in the forest. And it just goes on and on and on and on for 17 minutes. It's absolutely extraordinary. And you're right. This is not some sick animal or something like that. It's something with massive lungs.
See, that's the one thing I pride myself on going out to places to put myself in that environment. Bigfoot's the one that keeps freaking me out, because I got to be honest with you. Put me in a room where there's a demonic force or a ghost or alien abductions, anal probing. Sure, sign me up. You put me in the middle of the woods, and if I'm in the woods by myself or even with you two, and I hear that whoo and the wood shake, I'm done. I'm cooked. That's it. I don't know how you come back from something like that to hear it right surrounding you. That would absolutely shatter me fear-wise. I just don't know if I'd make it back out of it. That's part of it. And then I got to fear, if these things can read my minds and it knows that's going to flip me out, how is it not going to screw with me?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you also remember that famous line from Star Wars where Han Solo talks about how Chewbacca can rip arms out of their sockets. So,
right.
That's always the image that flashes into my mind when you think of these 10-foot tall super beings.
Well, and you know what cracks me up is doing this now for 18 years, radio and talking to people. I've asked many of the Bigfooters out there, and I go, so you don't come out with a gun? Most of them say no, because the Bigfoot knows. So there's no real, I might have a knife or bear spray. That's about it. I'm like, okay, what is the plan of action if you walk around the corner and it's there? You're a Bigfoot hunter. What do you do next? And nobody's ever really had an answer. They're all just kind of like, well, we'll look at it. And you're like, right? It's so funny that people are out there spending weeks, months, years of their life in search of this. And if they actually caught it or it walked up to them, what's the game plan at that moment? Tobe, if it happened to you tomorrow and you walked out and Bigfoot walked right up to you in the woods.
Here it comes.
Yeah. What do you do?
Well, so I'm kind of fearless when it comes to the woods because I haven't had that happen yet. So, that puts me in the naive category. So you're talking to a guy that sleeps in his hammocks waiting for, the swing set thing to happen to me. But yeah, I think immediately you have to submit. You have to show them that you're of no threat. I think pulling a gun is not going to do you a world of good. Your experience is going to be short-lived because they're not going to stick around, but the consequences of pointing a weapon at them, it's no good. I've talked to people who've been hit with infrasound. That's just the base term we're going to use here, where they've been stunned, for lack of a better word, by something that kind of makes them sick and flee. And that's something that I've seen happen. It's never happened to me, but it looks terrifying. It looks way more terrifying than the Bigfoot encounter. But Brett, you've had people tell you, witnesses say, you don't want to see one of these things. And that, that comment really sticks with me.
Yeah, we had a man that's a scientist, actually, and a pretty esteemed scientist. We did a Zoom call with him early on in the interviewee process, where we'd kind of talk to interviewees. And he ultimately didn't want to go on camera because he had he had a big reputation, a lot of government contracts. But this individual saw a Bigfoot in the 80s with 5 family members, and he watched a Bigfoot, 10-foot Bigfoot carrying an elk underneath his arm, like it was a cat or something. And he looked into that Zoom camera, and his lip was quivering. And this is an experience he had 40 years ago. He went right back into it. And he said to Jill, and he says, you don't want to see one. And he was like tearing up. You know,
Interesting. Isn't
yeah.
When you
So
consider that the banshee, you
it
can hear the
yeah.
banshee, and you never want to see the banshee. If you hear the banshee, someone you know is going to die. If you see the banshee, you're going to die. And it almost seems like that because so many of the indigenous members I have spoken about who have off the record told me, they said when they see them, like you said, the submissive deal, they duck their head, acknowledge they're there, and get out of their way. And that's it. They don't show any aggression. They don't want to cross their path. They will veer the opposite direction to let them know this is your area. I'm aware you're here, and that's it. But it is interesting, that whole Fae connection and more twists and turns into all of the paranormal elements of what we may be dealing with.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of the problem, though, Tobe, is because we as humans want to compartmentalize everything? Because we can't put these things in a compartment, that's what makes them seem less believable, less probable?
No, I think so. It's just a real uncomfortable answer from relic hominid or missing link or, Jack Link's jerky. This is something that belongs on the Sci-Fi Channel for good reason. I mean, they've been trying to tell that to us for years through the First Nation stories, the oral traditions of them walking through two worlds. But I think with the UFO conversation, it's leading the direction on how, and the Bigfooters are listening to these UFO conversations, by the way, big names. We did an interview with Jeff Meldrum, and he's listening all the time to what's going on as far as how the UFO conversation is being had at a private and public level. Because eventually I think that conversation may come this way as well. I hope so.
It's got to come this direction because, we're talking about things that we're seeing in the sky. These are creatures that resemble humans that are living on Earth with us. And they may very well be our brethren. They may be our cousins. We don't know. But what I do know is that they're real. The evidence is overwhelming. Yeah, we don't have a body. And part of the reason we don't have a body is because of the paranormal attributes, in my opinion. And I think that not having a body really shows that they most likely are paranormal. But I can say, and I would bet my life on the fact that they are real, 100%.
Excellent. Check it out. A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. And I will make sure that we put the link up, and I'll share it on my social media as well. So folks, check social media, all of my socials from Facebook to Instagram to X to whatever. I will have links up and information on this documentary so that you can see it. Go watch it now. Share it with your friends, family, relatives. Get the word spread. If you are interested and fascinated in all elements of the paranormal, and even if you don't think you're a Bigfooter, watch this documentary. Tobe, Brett, stay with me after I go off air here, and I want to talk to you for a few more seconds. And folks, thank you for tuning in. I'll be back Wednesday. We've got a great show lined up for you. More of the very best in paranormal conversations right here on the Paranormal 60.